What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So one state that I've been watching very closely, and I told you guys this several months back, 3-4 months ago, I saw a poll come out in South Carolina, and it was the Senate race they were talking about. And that poll was, it raised an eyebrow for me. And so I want to talk a little bit about, we have some new polling coming out of South Carolina. And if you guys didn't know, Lindsey Graham is running for re-election in South Carolina. So I want to take a look at the latest polling. I want to talk a little bit about this because I think Democrats might have an opportunity. We'll have to see. At this point right now, let me put this out there. South Carolina is a red state. However, we're seeing some dissatisfaction with Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. So voters in South Carolina, they're not satisfied with what Lindsey Graham is doing. And so we're going to take a look at the polling. We'll take a look at the Senate map at the end. We'll talk a little bit about this. South Carolina, we're going to watch it very closely. Right now, I'm still saying that it's, that it's likely that Lindsey Graham will win, but it might not be easy. And we could see in the future, just depending on all the stuff that's going on. Remember, Lindsey Graham is, he's really out there talking a lot about this war in Iran. So that could backfire on him. We'll have to see how it plays out. We'll have to see how long this war lasts, because the longer that war lasts, the more impact it's going to have on voters in the U.S. So let's go ahead and get started. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to take a look at this article. This is ABC4, and it says statewide poll shows majority of would-be voters view Senator Lindsey Graham unfavorably. And it says here, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham is viewed unfavorably by 61% of voters, according to a new statewide poll conducted by Impact Research. And so when I looked at that poll, I said, maybe this is an outlier. This is not how voters feel in South Carolina. So, and then it says poll suggested that 34% of voters viewed favorably. So now, what I want you to focus on here is we're saying his unfavorables, 61%, favorables, 34%. That is lower than what President Trump's favorables are right now. Okay, just to give you some context on this. Okay, and then it says with 57% of respondents claiming they are looking to vote for someone else. They're looking to vote for someone else. The majority of the people that were polled, these voters in South Carolina, the majority of them are saying they're looking to vote for someone else. Okay, so that's what really caught my attention. Then, and we can look at, they give us a sample size and everything. So you have 700 likely voters, and they don't give us a margin of error here. Okay, so, and I like to look at the margin of error, but it's not here. So we'll just go with the 700. The margin of error is probably around 4%, plus or minus. And as I stated that, they do have this at the bottom here. So they do have all of the information. The margin of error right here is 3.7. So it's close to 4%. Now, in that polling, I want to show you the head-to-head. So Impact Research, they did the poll, and this was between February 25th and March 1st. This is the same poll, right? 700 likely voters, and that margin of error is the same there. So it's showing us that Lindsey Graham was at 47%, Annie Andrews was at 42%, undecided was at 11%. Now, when you inform the voters, okay, so Dr. Andrews, people might not know who she is, right? So when you give them more information, she's a doctor, she's this, she's that, then this is what we're looking at. Lindsey Graham at 46%, Andrews at 44%, undecided at 9%. So she's within 2 percentage points. Both of these, when we're looking at this, look at that margin of error. So both of these fall within that margin of error, which means that there's no clear leader, okay? So that was back in February. Now we fast forward to today, okay? And they don't have a head-to-head, so I couldn't find a head-to-head, but since the primary is next week, by the way, I'll be streaming it live, so make sure you guys stop by. It'll be on Tuesday. I'll give you more information. The best way for you to know, to get notified, is to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification. You'll get notified when I put up the information for the live. However, we don't have a head-to-head, but what I wanted to look at, because I think this is really interesting, I wanted to look at the primary, the Republican primary and the Democratic primary. We'll look at the Democratic primary first, okay? So the Democratic primary, this is coming from Citadel, And you have the sample size isn't very big, but this was conducted on 6/2, and the sample size 427 South Carolinians, I would imagine, likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 4.7%. Andrews at 45, Brown at 14, Freeman at 5. Other, look at this other here, 36%. Okay, so people just haven't made up their mind yet between the candidates. I mean, the vast majority are going for Andrews, but they might not really know who is running on the Democratic ticket. That happens a lot, right? Okay, let's take a look at Lindsey Graham, because this is pretty surprising, considering that this is a primary, a Republican primary, and considering that Lindsey Graham is the incumbent and he's on the ballot. Generally, incumbents really don't really have a challenge, a real challenger. They usually will be higher than 50% because everyone knows who they are. When you're struggling to get to 50%, that's a problem. That means that people in your own party want someone else. And that is where this, we're looking at this polling, and we were looking at the polling back in February that was saying, that the Lindsey Graham's unfavorables were like 61%. And when we were looking at those unfavorables, that's across the board, Democrats, Republicans, independents. But now we're just looking at Republicans. Okay, so we're looking at Republican voters. And Republican voters are saying, and if we look at the insider advantage down at the bottom here, we'll work our way up. This was conducted on 5/15. 800 likely voters. The margin of error there, plus or minus 3.5%. You have Lindsey Graham at 56, Lynch at 13, and then you have all these other candidates. I'm not going to go over every candidate, but the main thing I want to focus on is the number right here, 56%. That is close to 50%. He should, realistically, Lindsey Graham should be 65 or higher if people, really preferred him. Now, looking at Trafalgar, this was conducted on 5/26/2026, 1,125 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 2.9%. Look at this, 52%. Very close to 50%. He should be higher than that, much higher than that. And then you have Lynch at 28%. And let's look at the last one here, Citadel. Conducted on 6/2/2026. 600 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 4.5%. And you have Lindsey Graham at 46. He is under 50%. And you have Lynch at 36%. And then you have other here too. There's something to note. You have other at 18%. So, realistically, if you want to look at this, and we do have the margin of error there, that plays a role, but this would still be outside of the margin of error here. This would be outside of the margin of error, just looking at Lynch versus Graham. But when you have 18% other, what that's telling me is you have a group of Republicans in South Carolina that they don't want to vote for Lindsey Graham. They want to vote for someone else. Could that be Lynch? Could that be some of the other candidates? It could very well be. But they're not satisfied with Lindsey Graham. And so is it possible that this 18% can move over and vote for Lynch and primary Lindsey Graham? It's possible. I'm not saying it's likely, but this is just showing us that Lindsey Graham is struggling. He is struggling. And when you look at the average, look at the average at the top here. They averaged the last three polls. You see Lindsey Graham is at 51.3%. 51.3%. He is barely over 50%. And he's the incumbent. And so that's why Lindsey Graham has a problem here. He has a real problem. Now, when we look at Andrews, yes, she's at 45%, but she is not an incumbent. And she is not well known right now. That's why you have this 36% other, because they don't know who to vote for. They don't know Dr. Andrews. But everyone in South Carolina knows Lindsey Graham. He's been there since, I think, 2003. So he's been there a very long time. And so this is not good news for Lindsey Graham. He doesn't want to see stuff like where he's at 46% or he's at 52% or on average he's at 51.3%. He doesn't want to see numbers like that because that is showing that he's very vulnerable. And so if we look at the Senate map, what I'm showing you here, so the areas that are grayed out, these are the states that I think that are in play. Now, South Carolina, I have it red. Why? Because I think South Carolina is still a red state, and I think that it's likely that Lindsey Graham will be able to pull it out. But when we're looking at what's happening today, the polling that's coming out right now, Lindsey Graham, it's not going to be easy for Lindsey Graham to win. Now, if we were to see Democrats miraculously flip South Carolina, I mean, first off, it would have to be a tsunami for us to see that, okay? Because we have other states where Democrats have a good shot at winning. They have a good shot at winning in North Carolina. They have a good shot at winning in Maine. They also have a good shot at winning in Alaska. And then we're looking at Texas. We're looking at Ohio. I think they have good shots at winning in both of those states. When it looks at Iowa, we're still we want to get a little bit more information coming out of Iowa. But if we were to see a tsunami, if we were to see Democrats really perform well in a lot of these different races, it's possible that they can be very competitive in South Carolina. Now, if Democrats were able to win in South Carolina, that is going to open up the pathways that Democrats have to take back control of the Senate. If we're looking at a map very similar to this, where we have Democrats win in North Carolina, Democrats win in Maine, Democrats win in Alaska, and let's say Democrats are able to pull it out in South Carolina, now we're looking at Democrats and independents at 51, and we would have Republicans, if they won the last three states, they would be at 49. And so that is a scenario that we could see. I'm telling you right now, South Carolina is not one of those states that I would be looking to say, okay, yeah, Democrats have a real shot at flipping. But if we see polling continuing to come out looking like this for Lindsey Graham, there could be an opening. There could be an opportunity for Democrats to win in South Carolina. And so I just wanted to mention that. I know, I talked about this several months back when it comes to South Carolina. There's not a lot of polling that's coming out of South Carolina. I wish there was more, then we could get a better idea of what's going on. I want to see more head-to-head polls as well. But we'll have to wait. I guess we're going to have to wait until after the primary. And then once it's official that it's Dr. Andrews versus Lindsey Graham or whoever it is, once that's been confirmed, then we'll have a better idea of where this state is going. But right now, it is raising an eyebrow because I do think that Lindsey Graham, there's some vulnerability there. We're looking at his favorables very, very low. And with this war in Iran, the fact that he is really pushing this and continuing to push this, it could backfire. And if it does backfire, we could see voters in South Carolina change their opinion. Now I'm going to pass it off to you. What do you guys think? What do you think about South Carolina? Do you think it's possible to flip South Carolina? Where would you put that on a scale of 1 to 10? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember,
so that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that. David@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.